That Sam Hyde quote about how they want your kids raped and brainwashed and they think it's funny. I think he's talking about Jews, but people post that all over Twitter and they kind of make it insinuate that it's talking about leftists or something. Just people they don't like in general, and it seems to be a bit of an exaggeration. It seems to be like this rage bait thing where a bunch of right wingers can come together and get mad because they have some kind of a wise man, this wise old man, which is kind of the archetype that Sam Hyde fulfills for them, although he's a few different things. They want some wise old man to tell them that they're right to be angry, and so they get angry together, and it gets a lot of likes and everything. It is an exaggeration. I think that a lot of liberals, a lot of Jews, a lot of people out there on the other side of the aisle do not want to rape and brainwash your kids. But I was on Twitter today and I did see the reaction from Charlie Kirk's death. And it was surprising. It was this kind of a foreign mentality to me to see all these people celebrate another person's death like this. A lot of people came to conclude because of this that the leftists, I guess that's what we're going to call them for this video, are evil. And sure, maybe I'm willing to accept that explanation, but I personally am not content with it. I'm not content to just stay there and stick with it. I would like to explore that and figure out what exactly is going on precisely, because evil seems to be some kind of a mystical thing to explain things that are a little bit mysterious to you. There's a Car Seat Headrest song that has a lyric that says that evil is just a word to explain things that we don't understand. And I think to an extent that's true. There's this video that I saw on Twitter recently. It was this Mexican woman who was making a lot of faces like that. She was talking about how people like Nick Fuentes, for example, should be very nervous right now because this and that. She made all these passive statements. And I saw a comment underneath it that said, this is how women act because they know instinctually that they are not supposed to be involved in the war. That's men's job. So all women do is they gloat. They stand on the winning side and they gloat and condescend and use their social power to position themselves on the winning side as much as possible because that's just the natural thing. And I thought that that explanation made a lot of sense. I mean, this is that kind of armchair evolutionary psychology stuff that I find to be tiresome online, but actually that did make a lot of sense to me. And I hadn't really thought about it from that angle before. And what's interesting about that is that actually, if you think about leftists in general, and you think about what they're all about, I'm going to be so bold as to say that the leftist, at least the modern liberal, the modern left-leaning, degenerate person, you know what I'm talking about, libtard, woke person. The modern person of this ilk is an extremely political person, not in the sense necessarily that they're involved in reading the news and in following the latest news stories. I mean to say that they are an extremely socially political person. They are not connected to the real world, but they are very connected to the social world. And in the social world, if you are involved with the social world and insulated by it, and I'm going to say something that sounds very cliche, then it is an optimal strategy to play the victim. Why is it like mathematically optimal to play the victim in a social world when you are insulated from the outside world? It means that other people are obligated to give you their resources, their time, their energy. Because if you have victim status within a tribe, it means that you deserve more. You deserve to have more. You deserve other people to work for you. Just like how in a right-wing kind of a society, If you are the producer, if you're the leader, then people work for you. People give money and time and energy to you. That's why they get a surplus. That's why they have workers underneath them. So it is a kind of this weird inverse that occurs, but it's actually very natural. It's not as grotesque as people think it is, that people have this victim status, because it's something that has existed since tribes have existed. This is just what it is. But, of course, as we see, these woke types like to play the victim as much as possible. The gays, the women, the blacks, the whatever kind of minority group you want to pick. If they can successfully insulate themselves within the social world and play the victim, then they get access to resources. And so this is the strategy of this type of person. And therefore, they're also, just like that Mexican woman in the video, able to sit on the winning side and gloat and talk about how you can call for violence and you can say, whoever is doing the violent thing is the one who's winning, whatever. And I think this is the explanation for why we see them celebrate or be indifferent to the violence towards the, how do I put this, European heteronormative side of the aisle. Every time these incidents come up, there's either this kind of indifference or maybe a hesitant kind of a admitting that, okay, my principles say that we shouldn't be violent, but a lot of it is celebratory. There's a lot of celebration on the left that occurs when these things happen. The core thing that's happening here is that these people are not connected to the physical world. When men are engaged in war, intertribal warfare, the men are engaged with the physical world. They need to strategize in the real world. They need to think about the real world. They need to think about real logistics, real manpower, real physical, what are we going to do kind of thinking. The social world is different from that physical world that the warriors have to be attached to. Warriors and generals and whatever other kind of fighting men there are to protect the nest. This lack of connectedness to the physical world is what I sense when I imagine what it's like to be in their heads. And I can perceive intuitively that people like that Mexican woman are only connected very vaguely to the physical world. I think that these people see the world kind of like the Has-Been Hotel. I think that these people see the world like it's a cartoon, like it's these kind of these distorted icons and these unreal images. And when they see someone getting killed, when they see someone getting stabbed in the chest on a train, when they see someone getting shot in the neck and seeing liters of blood gushing out every few seconds, they don't feel that much because it's kind of like a cartoon to them. And that is because of their lack of connectedness to that physical world. Everything is just kind of a representation to them. It is a representation that backs up this ideology of their choosing within their social world, which they're insulated by. Plato alluded to the idea that a man has to be connected to the physical world first before he becomes a philosopher. He says that those who are not come off as a little bit too sensitive and a little bit too wimpy, and it's not tasteful for a man to be like this. I think this is kind of relevant here. Leftists, when they feel bloodlust, they don't feel it from a place of strength. They don't feel it in the same way that I think a normal person would. I think a normal person would feel bloodlust in a way that feels much more urgent, much more filled with consequence, much more dark and dramatic, like how I see on the right-wing side of the aisle. The left-wing bloodlust is real and dangerous, and they do act on these ideas, but it comes from a place of weakness and from a lack of presence. And just like how Plato suggested, I'm going to say that the reason that the leftists are in the wrong for feeling this way is because there's a proper ordering to the world. Why is murder wrong? Maybe this kind of enlightened liberal way of thinking would suggest that I don't know, right to life, or maybe they didn't die consensually and suicide is okay, but they didn't consent to die or something like that. But none of that is quite right. It's more that when we see someone die, like I have for the past few days on Twitter, when you see someone die, you see it as grotesque, not just because it's gross or tasteless, but because you can see the transcendent nature of someone's humanity being snuffed out by physical means. And we can sense that this is not the proper way to orient ourselves in society. We can sense that just in the same way that we should be oriented towards the physical world and we should have a presence with it, the physical world should be serving our transcendence rather than our kind of feelings of discomfort and resentment in the moment. The physical world should serve our transcendence. And even when we feel these feelings of pleasure from the physical world, from food or sex or anything else, it should be serving the transcendent nature of our humanity. And it should not be reducing us to the physical world. And when you understand the world this way, you can understand that the right-wingers are onto something when they are saying that gay sex is immoral, for example. That doesn't make sense to the liberal leftist person, because it's a little bit too abstract to suggest that sex isn't meant to just make people happy. I mean, that doesn't seem to make any sense. There doesn't seem to be a downside to this. But on the other hand, there doesn't seem to be a downside to murder when you think about it. I mean, if you kill someone quickly, the pain only lasts for a few seconds, then they're done, and then there's no more pain. And the only pain that they feel, well, really, the only pain that is felt is the people who miss that person. But I mean, people leave. People aren't always going to be in your life, and death is natural anyway. We're all going to die, so it doesn't seem like a huge deal on the surface to murder someone. But the problem is that we are using the physical world to get what we want. We're using it like a parasite instead of using it to serve transcendence. And that's what it all comes back to. It all comes back to God. It all comes back to being as simple as the people on the left have lost their orientation, their proper orientation in the world, because they've lost God. They've lost the truth. They hate the truth. They don't really like logic. They don't really like humanity. And that is a more complex explanation of what's really going on. It is as simple as there's a lot of evil on that side, unfortunately.